I'm sitting here with Ron Kamenko, Chet Wires, and Ed Michael, some of the founding members of Railroad Workers United. If you guys could speak about the beginnings of Railroad Workers United.
It started with this idea that it started as Railroad Operating Crafts United, because we had this idea that the operating crafts and the BLET and the UTU, and we all know they should be merged. They should be together. And there had been some attempts to do it on an international level, and they'd never come to fruition. So we started with this idea that we could bring it about from the bottom up. And we had a method for doing that. And we ended up talking to each other, and it's just like, all of a sudden we just kind of empowered ourselves to, hey, maybe we could make this happen. And she's not here now, but Gail Francis was a staffer at TDU, and she was a big part of that. She was right there from the formation, and it grew, and we worked hard at bringing about that merger. And that's the way we started. It's just this crazy idea that, hey, we may be rank and filers, but we can do this.
And the idea was that the previous merger attempts failed, not just because of bureaucratic interference and self-serving interests of the leadership, but because the agreement wasn't particularly democratic. So we had this crazy cockeyed scheme, or at least Ed did, and then he convinced me it would be worthwhile pursuing, that we should say, let's try to put the idea out there to consummate a merger between the UTU and the BLE that would be ultra-democratic, that would empower the rank and file, one member, one vote for all the way from the local through the general committee to the international level, with recall, all of the things that we liked about either the BLE Constitution or the UTU Constitution, and the best of both. We talked to Jerry Tucker from the Auto Workers Union about councils to decide when you have problems in the union. I mean, we just dug as far as we could to find every possible way that we could make the most democratic merger agreement and constitution possible, that the rank and file of both organizations would say, hell yeah, this is what we want. And we would finally have that merger that we've been wanting in the rail industry for literally 125 years.
Yeah. And it's kind of crazy now when you think about it. Here's three guys, and we just kind of brainstormed a little bit, and with Gail, and then next thing you know, we're all throwing a few bucks on the table, say, let's get this going, This is what we need to do, and it just took off from there. Of course, a little bit later down the road, when the UTU merger went through with the sheet metal workers, we realized that, our goal of bringing forcing a merger of those two unions wasn't going to come to fruition.
Well, the Teamsters had merged with the BLE before we got
that was blow
everything
one.
set
Yeah,
too.
that was below one.
Yeah.
And the BLE was no longer an independent union, and the UTU was no longer an independent union, so we realized we couldn't do that. So the encouraging thing to me, and we talked about this, we had this conference call, and it's like, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And we had this conference call with quite a few people on there.
And this would have been 2007.
Yeah, yeah. And everybody talked, and but the encouraging thing to me was nobody said, let's give up, we can't do it. Yeah. Nobody, not one person.
And that was
said
an option on the table, as I recall.
Yeah, because there wasn't, Jim Eubanks, and there was a couple other people that was founding members, Jim was from Arkansas, Ed and I was out of Salem. Ron, was I think back then
Chicago at the time.
In transition.
Yeah.
And so we had kind of an odd fellow group that was involved with it, But the main goal was well, we would like to do this. Well, when it failed or come out of our hands where we couldn't do anything, then we decided, well, maybe we'll change our outlook from that to being kind of like a watchdog. That we're here, we got our eyes on you, and we see what's going on. Because to be real truthful, when the UTU went to merge with the sheet metal workers, I need to place this right, because got a phone call in confidence that there was some stuff getting ready to go on, and they couldn't do anything about it because they didn't have the time frame. And he wanted to know if we was still up and running with our computer base, all our big membership back then, probably 100 people when that was going on. And he said, can you get the word out? And I said, what we can do, I called Ed. Ed got on the computer, he got on the phone. The UTU thought there was no time to stop that merger from going through right then, right there,
And
just
it
the way they
this
was gonna do
close.
it.
It was that close.
And at the last minutes, then we was able to get a judge to sign the restraint, keep it from going through because, and everything. We didn't win, but we didn't lose.
No.
We didn't win and keep them from not merging, but we won enough that the people that was in it that was being so self-serving and doing things for all the wrong reasons were either retired or they got scared and they retired or they was gone or whatever. But they didn't get what they thought they was going to get.
So when did ROCU become Railroad Workers United?
Well, when we, like I said before, when we decided that, you know, we could not bring that merger between those two unions to fruition, we asked ourselves, what are we going to do now? What are we going to do? We had this big, long discussion, and nobody said we give up, we quit. And so we started talking, and we eventually talked ourselves to where, okay, there's 13 unions representing railroad workers in the United States. We need solidarity between all those people. And so let's change our organization to reflect that and begin building that bridge of solidarity between all the crafts. And so we did. And we changed, well, we got to change our name. So we changed our name to RWU. But I want to tell this story real quick. We had one guy that, since we had been ROCU and working on the merger between those two unions, he was a machinist or electrician, Selkirk, John?
Machinist.
Machinist out of, for the CSX out of
John
Selkirk, New
Flanders.
York. He's kind of a union activist, and he'd heard about us, and he was getting on conference calls. He didn't really have a part in bringing about this merger, but he liked us, so he'd get on conference calls. Anyway, we have his conference call. We morphed into this, and we decided we was going to do this and make this change and bring about the work for solidarity between all of us. And I heard John on this call go, "Whew, it's about time." He says, I don't know how long I've been waiting for this, guys, but he said, I'm tickled to death. And it was so, it was so profound. Here this poor guy had been waiting for us to get there. Knew we would get there, but he was just patiently waiting.
And I should just add to that too. We had other brothers in the industry. Matt Weaver with BMW, who was also very, very interested in what we were trying to achieve, and would join us on ROCU conference calls and just sit in and listen, because Matt has a democratic spirit and a thrust for unity and solidarity, and has done great work as a rank and file as a BMW member, and as local chairman, I guess, for many years there in Toledo. But yeah, we had a number of people outside of the operating crafts who were very intrigued by what we were doing, and they saw it as a positive step forward. As all of the crafts always have, whenever there's been a movement throughout the last 150 years to merge, it's been in the interest of every rank and filer to see less unions, more solidarity. As Eugene Debs once said, just because you have more unions doesn't mean you have anything.
Yeah.
It just means you have a lot of different organizations that have the potential to fight each other. So,
I remember when I found Railroad Workers United, I found a sticker on a locomotive, and I made the phone call. And I believe it was either a fax number or it was a message, but I got a phone call back from Ron Kamenko, and I remember the conversation very well. I was very upset about some things. I didn't understand some things. I was raised in a union family, IBEW, so I thought I knew, hey, this is not what I thought the union situation was supposed to be like. And we had a wonderful conversation. He was very passionate about it, let me talk for a long time. Later on, as a member, I realized I didn't tell him anything new, but he listened, and he responded very passionate.
I knew I had a live one on the hook.
What is Railroad Workers United?
What is it?
I found that Railroad
Jeez.
Workers United for me was a group of like-minded folks who were very frustrated with the situation. Now we can talk about it and we can say things like rank and file, building a caucus, all of these words that sometimes even people like me back then, I didn't understand those words. But what is Railroad Workers United?
And I think one thing I found, it's a group of people like you that that are, you know, they find things wrong and they feel like they're alone in trying to make a change. And all of a sudden they find Railroad Workers United and they find out, well, like you found out, I'm not alone. There's people out there like me, and this is where I belong, you know.
And it's not for everybody, that's for
No,
sure.
no.
You know, you can't please all the people all the time, and we're not trying to. But for the brother or sister who hires out with the railroad, who's got their eyes open, and has some kind of key sense for identifying what's wrong and a deep desire to change what's wrong, like a profound sense of justice. Within a year on the railroad, I mean, I realized this is messed up. There is something drastically wrong with this situation. The union seems completely impotent, completely incapable of fighting back. They're so busy. And when I hired in '96 with Conrail, I came in just before Conrail got sectioned off to CSX and Norfolk Southern, and just before the failed merger attempts. So there was all this talk of merging. Well, that made sense to me, and then it, you know, went to Palookaville, and it doesn't take but a year on the railroad, I would think, maybe two, before a young railroader realizes something ain't right. And we talk to people all the time, and you know, like we were talking about Ryan just the other day, and in Salt Lake, and these fellas who join, they get it, and they understand what we're trying to do is build an organization like any other organization. Why do any organizations come together? Why does anybody join an organization? To build power, to fight in your mutual interests, and that's all we're doing. And in that sense, if you want to call us a union, then by God, we're a union. We're not a union under U.S. labor law.
Well,
But in many countries of the world, we would be considered a union. Like people from France or whatever
Yeah.
will assume we're a union because we're a mutual aid society of workers in the same industry who share the same concerns, who are organizing together to basically fight back and say, we want to change.
and in the Webster Dictionary, it says, union, a group of people coming together to speak with one voice.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with that said, I want to make a distinction. We're not about to be going head to head because we want to steal the BLET's
No.
members or
No.
raid the UTU. That's not what our game is. We're not about that.
We, you know, we don't care. Well, we care, but we have no intentions of establishing ourselves as a union and representing people under the labor laws. That's not what we are. You know, we want that change and we want that improvement in our unions, in those 13 unions that represent railroad workers in the United States and the ones in Canada and the ones in Mexico. But we say to our members, you belong to a craft union, whether it's BLE, UTU, whatever, BMWED. You belong to a craft union. Stay in that craft union. That's your place. They hold your contract. But come join us in RWU to help us make change and build solidarity and build this bridge that's so badly needed across these crafts, but at the same time, get involved in your craft union.
So I've been the organizer for 2 years. Let me ask you to answer these questions. Kind of try to keep it a little short. But here's the criticisms that I receive when I talk to people about RWU. RWU does not represent you in a contract. Why should I join?
Well, that's right. They don't represent you in a contract right now, but well, my personal opinion on it is that we want people to know that if they have questions or they want answers to whatever, there's a lot of wealth and knowledge here with all these railroaders, and it doesn't necessarily have to be railroaders per se, because it could be set up as a lot of things. But to me is, and I guess I was so passionate for so long, was I wanted the unions to continue because of all the people that fought for unions years ago. But I wanted them to continue in the right way not in the way they have been going in the past few years, which was really in the wrong way.
So John Flanders, Ed, you were talking about John.
Yeah.
John showed up here. I was saying, John is one of the founding members of Railroad Workers United. I was saying, I've been the organizer for Railroad Workers United for 2 years, and field these criticisms because I hear them all the time. Why should I pay $50 a year to be a member of Railroad Workers United when I already pay $120 a month in union dues?
Yeah, what do you get? Why,
Yeah,
why
John,
be a
what do
member?
you get?
What do you get? You get a knowledge of a broader understanding of what's going on in the industry and how it's going to affect you, and how you can be more effective in your local. I mean, that's if you don't see the big picture, if you don't understand history, you're fighting with one hand tied behind your back, or you're walking around with one eye closed, maybe two eyes closed. You know,
In some
I mean,
cases.
Yeah.
and that's the problem with so many, particularly younger workers today, who are not educated about what the history of labor has been, what workers have gone through. You know, they're walking into these. I saw it in my shop. I just retired in May, and saw these 20-somethings, and you know, for a kid that's say 22, 24 years old, wow, you know, here's a job of getting, you know, big bucks, and they don't have a family, they don't, and it changes, you know, once they got a couple kids and a wife and all the rest of it. This job's not so great anymore. I got to work second shift, third shift. You know, I got my days off for Tuesday and Wednesday. Damn. You know?
But RWU is not a union. Why should I join? If they can't represent me in a contract, why should I join?
Because that's where you're going to meet people who can help you possibly fight to change that situation. You know, this is where the activists in the railroad industry meet.
And I think that's a key, huge point, because we're building a network. We're building a network of guys all over the country, and theoretically, if we can pull it off, all over North America, Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. We have a lot in common, but none of us talk to each other. None of us know each other. As I said earlier at the convention, there's probably over 100 locals in the city of Chicago, electricians, machinists, UTU, BLE, BMW. They all meet separately. None of them know each other's issues. None of them know each other's concerns. It's like, we see this, it's a battle. It's between us, the working people of the railroad, and the rail carriers. But yet we go into battle. You're meeting there on Tuesdays at the Elks Club. You're meeting Thursdays, the second Wednesdays at the VFW. And none of us know what each other's doing. So RW is filling this void.
One of the criticisms that I had gotten about Railroad Workers United, not necessarily criticism, but a comment that I'd gotten about Railroad Workers United, is a very interesting one. And this is almost a quote. Railroad Workers United is creating too many divisions that aren't necessary. Railroad Workers United should, organized within the structure of their own organizations, as in their own unions, to seek the changes that they are wishing to see. Speak about that.
And that's exactly what we say.
I know.
Our members should organize within their own union to seek the changes. And we're not being divisive. Those people that are saying we're being divisive don't like our message of solidarity, unity, democracy. They want the status quo. And that they call that being divisive.
Yeah,
If you're
and
not-
I think it's ironic. We didn't create the divided situation of rail labor. We had nothing to do with that. We live, we experience, we work daily in a divided situation. We had nothing to do with creating it. Our goal is to heal those divisions, is to build unity and solidarity between conductors and engineers, between the operating crafts and the non-operating crafts. We have no interest in dividing anybody up. And people have said, well, you guys are a front for the Teamsters. Oh, you guys are nothing but you're for the road conductor. You're for the UT. You know, why you got those non-operating crafts? I don't want to join that crap. You got like hostlers and laborers, and God only knows what individuals in your unit. And I say, I have no craft. I mean, I do, but my loyalty is to no craft, is to no union organization. My loyalty is to railroad workers, period.
So let me ask this last question. Quickly, briefly, Railroad Workers United is.
An organization for all railroad workers to heal the divisions, build a network of solidarity between all of us. I can say it again, an injury to one is an injury to all.
Chet, Railroad
That's our
Workers
credo.
United is.
I think it is a vehicle for people who don't understand the unions and the union ways. And if we didn't diversify from it, we would continue to do the same thing as we always done.
Ed Michael.
Railroad Workers United is a place for people out of all the crafts, whether they be actual railroad workers or contract workers or whatever, as long as, they're connected with the industry. It's a place to bring us together, empower us as rank and file members to look to our craft unions and say, we want to improve things, not only within our craft unions, but across the whole industry. We want, no matter what craft you are, I want to say, brother, how can I help, and how can you help us? That's what
I've said that Railroad Workers United is the education and training department of the unions that really doesn't exist sometimes. And I've been criticized for saying that, we have education and training at the regional meeting. But from what I've experienced at this convention here is that at the regional convention, you're not going to get Korean rail workers, you're not going to get Japanese rail workers, African rail workers. It's this building. Railroad Workers United is what we are supposed to have.
And I would add to that, even more importantly, you're not going to have these interactive face-to-face discussions.
Mhm.
You may have politicians, bureaucrats, and guest speakers sort of give rousing speeches, but that doesn't. And I've been to conventions, and what our goal is like you say, education and training. What better way to sit in this room and talk about the situation with Rensenberger drivers and all crew van drivers, to talk about the whole contract sector, to talk about single employee crews, how to build a campaign, how to fight back against the things that the industry is ramming down our throat, behavior-based safety. That's what we do. We talk about the issues, we have an interaction, there's no hierarchy, here's the leaders down here and they give us wisdom and give fancy speeches and then we all sit here and clap, in appreciation. No, we interact. It's a rank and file democratic organization. There's very little dichotomy between the steering committee of this organization and the rank and file. Our goal is railroad workers together, understanding the situation and fighting back as a group.
All right, thanks, guys.